Our next speaker is the Dean of St. Nersess. As many of you know, we have an Armenian seminary in the United States, located in New York. I'd like to welcome Father Mardiros Chevian, the Dean of St. Nersess, here to share more information.
Thank you very much. I'd like to begin by expressing my gratitude to Nersess Ender Vasken, an old friend, for inviting me here today to share with you a little information about an institution that is important to both dioceses, and to me personally, and to many generations of clergy and lay leaders who have received their training from it. Before I begin, I want to thank Serpazanhai especially for his support, unwavering support for St. Nersess as well for me personally. It means a lot, Serpazanhai. We only can succeed as much as we have the support of people like Serpazanhai. I'm going to share a little bit about me, very little, and more about St. Nersess that I represent. I was born in Providence, Rhode Island. I grew up in the church there. My parents were born in Providence, Rhode Island. And my grandparents, though, came from Batmagan Hayastan, the town of Palu, if any of you have heard of that, near Kharkiv. And they instilled in me love for church, love for culture, love for language. And so I grew up in that environment. A priest, who is now Hankutsial Aswadzokin Lusavore, Derhaik Donikyan, was the pastor when I was growing up. And he pulled me into the church and to serve at the altar, even though I didn't know anything. But he thought maybe and so he encouraged me to participate in the life of the church, trained me, sent me to St. Nersess in the summertime. At that time it was in Evanston, Illinois, as we recalled. And by meeting people throughout my life, examples and models of other clergy, I chose to become a priest. And that's how it happens, time and time again. A priest encourages a young person to pursue ministry in the church. It doesn't happen often. God encouraged, God speaks, but it's through other people that we hear the calling, the message. And so I finished college, I went to seminary, I graduated, and then I had two of the best years of my life studying and living in Holy Echmiadzin. Serpazan was there at that time, and Manuk, who was a deacon at that time, was also there. And those were the two best years of my life. It was like, it was the frosting on the cake of my training. I was only supposed to go for 1 year. The person who sent me is hanging there, the photo of Patriarch Torko Manukyan, one of your former primates. He is the one who encouraged me to go. When I finished the first year, I contacted him. I said, I want to stay another year. He said, no, you have to come back. I need you. And I begged, and I cried, and I cajoled, and I convinced him, Serpazan, because I'm gaining, and I want to gain a little more. And so that was the best decision of my life. After I came back, and I married my Yeretskin, he ordained me in St. Vartan Cathedral, where I began a short ministry in a parish in Waukegan, Illinois, and then I was called to St. Nersess by the board of directors to start a new campus in New Rochelle, New York. We had purchased donated a property, and I'm going to tell you whose money bought that property. You may be surprised. I was called back to get it going and to do recruitment and fix up the building, which was in disastrous shape, to put together an academic program with an academic committee. And I continued that work for 10 years until Hajak Sirpazan Barsamyan, who became the primate of the Eastern Diocese after Torkom Sirpazan moved to Jerusalem to become the patriarch, called me to the cathedral where I served for 20 years at St. Barthan Cathedral. Then the board had a new idea to move to a new campus, and I got called back again. So this is round 2 of me being in this position. And to date, I'm blessed to have been the longest serving Dean of St. Nersess, and I love my work, and I thank God for the opportunity to serve him and my church in this way. Now, St. Nersess was established for both dioceses. There in the minutes of the Western Diocese and the Eastern Diocese is the support of the diocesan assemblies supporting the establishment of this institution. And so for that reason, the board is comprised of members of both dioceses, mostly Eastern because of the geographic location, but we have many fine representatives of the Western Diocese on our board, and Sirpazan is the vice president of the board of directors by virtue of him being the primate, and whoever is the primate of the Eastern Diocese is the president, who today is Mardiros Chevian. We will have several students, thanks to Sirpazan's confidence, who are studying with us today. They're getting used to, with difficulty, the cold weather of New York. They're always complaining about that, even though they're running around with no coats on. They think they're still in Glendale or Los Angeles. But we love them, and we have, we're not a huge institution, so we have 1 or 2 graduates every year. This year, our graduate is from this diocese. Garen Sargavak Hamamjan, who serves primarily at the cathedral here. He will graduate and then go on to other studies in Jerusalem, Echmiadzin, based on Sirpazan's decision. And he will come back, and I believe he will be a really good priest for the Western Diocese. So you can take pride in that. And there are other students as well. We're interviewing, they're applying, they're studying. And so we're happy with Sirpazan's support and the students that are coming to be with us. Now, a little point in history. I'm next Sunday going to celebrate Badarak in a parish that maybe many of you have never even visited, and that's St. James in LA on Slauson, right? Yeah. Why am I going there? The first board of directors, one of the priests, there were only a couple of them on there, was the pastor of that parish, Haidirai Dervishan. He was a member of the first board of directors of St. Nersess. He was a close friend with our founder, Archbishop Tiran Nersoyan, a visionary, a man with great foresight, and the first major benefactor of St. Nersess was from that parish. Her name was Satene Guzunyan. She made a donation at that time in 1961 of $65,000, which in today's money would be $650,000. So that was a major gift to a yet unknown, not operating institution. She trusted in her pastor, Haidirai, who trusted in his good friend Tiran Sirpazan, and as a result of that, we were able to establish the school. So we're going to Hokyankis at my request for Hagop and Satani Guzunyan and Haidirai when I'm there this Sunday. And so this little parish in the little corner of Los Angeles, which maybe is forgotten in some ways, of course not by the diocese, but by people, is really significant historically. And we're going to do a piece on this to our communications. So keep that in mind. And if you're free on Sunday, Harametek. There's also a meeting dinner afterwards, luncheon. St. Nersess was established by a man, Archbishop Tiran Nersoyan, who felt that alongside the historic institutions that we have, seminaries, of the Navira Belagan Atorner, like Echmiadzin, Antilias, Jerusalem, at times Constantinople, we need to have a seminary in the West so that local, especially local, young men and women, we've accepted women not for the priesthood but for other ministries, could be trained in this country and then further their education, like I did, as I explained earlier, in one of the hierarchical sees. Jerusalem, Echmiadzin, or wherever that may be. And that together would give a well-rounded program of studies to prepare priests to serve in this country. And also for those who come from abroad, who have had those very rich and valuable experiences in Antioch, Echmiadzin, Jerusalem, wherever it may have been, or Constantinople, will come here and be able to acclimate to pastoral service in this country through the St. Nersess program. And so we have such things. We have acculturation programs, and that's what we do. And today we have approximately 70 graduates who are serving in the Armenian Church as bishops and archbishops, as gusagrons, vartabets, aperas, kahanas, as well as in lay ministry. We recognize these people. Lately, this was an idea, every couple of years to recognize a group of them so that they can be models, just like priests were models for me and all other priests, models for other young men and women who want to serve the Armenian Church, especially in North America. Though we've had bishops of the Bishop of Brazil, the Archbishop of retired now of Iraq, the former Bishop of France, and the former Bishop of the Eastern Diocese, Primate of the Eastern Diocese, are all St. Nersess graduates. So they don't serve just necessarily in North America, but in wherever they're called to. Two of them right now are in Echmiadzin, serving there in various capacities. And so he's established this place for those people who are born here who need to be prepared for service in America, which is different than service in Armenia or service in Haleb or service in Damascus or in Lebanon. It's a different sort of pastoral service. And we don't consider ourselves any better than Echmiadzin or Jerusalem or Antioch. We consider ourselves the junior partner in the vast historic experience of theological trainings in the Armenian Church. I've expressed this to Verpa, my respect and honor and love and appreciation for what all our hierarchical seminaries have offered, but I've also expressed that St. Nersess, a modest institution, has something to offer as well, and our peace, and he recognizes that, and the Patriarch of Istanbul, of Constantinople, has been sending students to us. He has another one lined to come to us because he knows that St. Nersess, compared to these big institutions, is small, but also can contribute to the development of good ministers, good teachers and preachers and pastors of the Armenian Church. 3 years ago, we started honoring them in groups of 12. You know that number, obviously. We call the 12 vocations. From this diocese, 2 of your priests were honored. One was Der Kevork here, who happens to be the first graduate to be ordained to the priesthood from St. Nersess Seminary. Some of his friends have dedicated a bench, which we are going to install very shortly. And then Der Shanok, Demirjan from Viennese, St. Peter, yeah, St. Peter Viennese, he was also part of that group. Last year, we also held this event. It's also a fundraiser, by the way. And we added, in addition to others, we congratulated and commemorated the work of Der Sarkis Petoyan. And the next one in 2 years, we do it every 2 years, we're going to be honoring Der Yelishe as part of the next group, the Sacramento priest, in case you don't know him. So we want to highlight these people, not to just help them feel good, although it's nice, but we want them to become examples and models to other young men and women who may be considering answering the call of God to serve Him through the Armenian Church. And so we have a video that we prepare every time. I'm going to show you right now the most recent one. And after that, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the program, about St. Nersess, the academic program, and other things we're doing. and then we will open for questions. So if we could, whoever's in charge of technology, because I'm worthless.
Just let
found out that Jesus was a scam, that this never happened, would it change the way you lived your life? And I thought to myself, I said, no, I would probably still be a good person. I would probably still live the life that I'm living now. I don't think it would change. And I remember to this day him looking at me seriously and saying, well, that's sad. I said, why is that sad? He said, it means you don't have a relationship with Jesus. And I think from that moment on, I really, really worked to have a personal relationship with our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. And seminary helped me to build that relationship. As I reflect upon my calling to enter seminary, I can't say that there was one point that let me know that this is what I wanted to do. Rather, I think it was a process. I remember my maternal grandmother when I was very, very young, and my grandmother and grandfather lived upstairs from us in a two-family home in Watertown. Almost daily, she would have me come up and read the Bible to me, and she would have me memorize Bible verses. So I think in that time, the seed was planted, but I didn't know it. I just thought I was being a good grandson, obedient grandson, and doing what my grandmother wanted me to do. When their Dajjal Davidian came to St. James in Watertown, I was a junior in high school, but here was a young American-born priest that related well to the young people. And I guess that kind of was the second inflection point that let me realize that, oh, you know what, there's something here. And I got very, very involved in the life of the church, starting to serve at the altar and just looking at their Dajjal and just admiring what he was doing.
This is the flyer for the Luke Bible study. So we're all set to go. What I want to do is ask you, do you want to do it in person here at church, or do you want to do a Zoom again? If I was asked to say where I encountered God and came to know him, I would have to say it was the classroom. It was not a big dramatic moment. There was no burning bush or route to Damascus. It was much more subtle, more like a whisper than a bullhorn, I think. Even when I was a child, and then as a student, and then later as a teacher, there was something that drew me to the classroom. And of course, it started in a secular classroom when I taught in the Philadelphia school system. I discovered how amazing it was to teach a child to read. Someone would come into my classroom struggling with letters and words, and by the end of the year, he or she was able to read, so I was opening up the world for that child.
I had these icons growing up. I felt a draw to go into the priesthood. But really what solidified it for me when I was about 8 or 9 years old, my father's cousin was going to be married. And he called me into his home office, the office at our house. And he said, I'm not going to call a deacon to serve at the wedding, but I want you to stand next to me. And he wrote on a small index card, and he said, I'm going to turn to you and you're going to say this a few times during the wedding service. I wish I had that card. And so as soon as my father and I ascended the altar at that wedding, something came over me. The Holy Spirit came upon me, and I knew this is where I belonged. I belonged at the altar serving God.
Խաղաղություն մեր և կյանք, որի հորե առաքեցար, միածին որդի Աստուծո, Տեր մեր և Փրկիչ Հիսուս Քրիստոս, դուր մեծս խաղաղություն քո, Քրիստոս
Archbishop Torgo Manukyan had a great influence on me, and he was the one who encouraged me to come to the United States and to continue my studies at St. Nersess Seminary. And coming from Armenia to Jerusalem and then from Jerusalem to the United States, it's a whole different experience. And I was very interested to learn about the culture here, about Armenians who lived here. And seminary gave me that opportunity, not only to further my studies, not only to learn about the riches of Armenian literature, Armenian faith, Armenian heritage, but also seminary gave me, St. Nersess Seminary gave me an opportunity to visit different parishes and visiting those parishes and talking to people to help me to shape my identity and my calling as a priest.
It was incredible. It was incredible to be with this small group of young men who were deciding to dedicate their lives to the Armenian Church. And we became very close. Father Vascan, Father Stepanos, I'm going to forget some, and I'll get into trouble. But it was great being there for 4 years and getting the Master's in Divinity degree.
On Pentecost, we're having a lunch with Father Musha. Sir Fazan's coming for ordination on March 17th. Super Bowl party, we may keep it or not on pot again time, depending on what happens.
Seriously, what else was I going to do? If you love God, if you love people, if you appreciate your ethnic pride as an Armenian, it doesn't take Sherlock Holmes to figure out you're going to swap out the American dream for the Armenian dream of becoming a priest. One of the benefits of St. Nersess is that there's a common bond among all the graduates. Seminary life does not end on the day of graduation.
And all of my seminarian brothers and sisters, both Armenian and non-Armenian, really became a family. You know, we laughed together, we cried together, we ate together. So through those experiences of just being with each other for so long, day and night, I really cherish those days. And those are relationships that I still have to this day.
We had good teachers, teachers that were people of God, like the founder of St. Nersess Seminary, Archbishop Tiran Nersoyan of blessed memory. 3 years with St. Nersess empowered me to serve the Armenian Church for more than 45 years.
Do you know, it's 10 years we've been working together. Should we continue? After my 30 plus years of doing ministry for the diocese and serving every diverse generation and community, from little children through camp, through young adults, through ACYOA, I have come full circle, and I'm now back at my parish where I am doing adult Christian education. And I really discovered that it is in the parish with people on a one-on-one that represents the fullness of Christian ministry. I feel like my ministry and my call is still there, and by each passing year, even though I've retired, I feel very active in doing God's work.
Our work is to guide ourselves first, and then guide our people, our faithful people, into the paths of love and faith and hope. I am reminded of a prayer of our church which says, Havrimez deram benagal, es havad, es suis es ser, yev zamenayin kol zesarakelutian. Increase in us, O Lord, faith, hope, charity, and good works, virtuous works.
I'm just a sinful servant of the Lord. We serve God. We serve God, and no matter what struggles we have, we just continue with keeping our eyes on Him.
it. Yes, Hampar. So every 2 years we have such an event, and every 2 years we'll prepare such a video honoring the next 12. Gamats, we're chipping away at them as this. But it will, someone said, what happens if you run out? If we run out, that means we stopped existing, right? Because we have new graduates every year, and so the list will go on, and we're happy about that. Seminary, the building was purchased thanks to Sate Neguzunyan of Los Angeles St. James in 1961. The doors opened in 1962. From 62 to 67, it operated in Evanston, Illinois. Why did they pick Evanston? Because back then, and it doesn't apply anymore, that was like the epicenter of the two dioceses, Chicago. So in their mind, this was the place to be, to serve both dioceses. It didn't last very long there and didn't produce any priests, but it did do one very important thing. Thanks to the hard work of their Karekin Kasparian, who is this year celebrating 50 years of ministry, the summer conferences were established. And we have some individuals who have attended those there in Rochelle and in other places. These summer conferences, thousands and thousands and thousands of young people of high school, college age have attended, and they have experienced 10 days, or back then it was 2 weeks, of mini seminary, a curriculum like a seminary, with also time for social activities, singing, culture, language, and just being with other Armenians throughout the country, from throughout the country. Moving on, that property was sold. Then we bought a new property with the money that was gained from selling the property in Evanston, almost to the dollar. We were able to purchase a new property in New Rochelle, New York. So Digin Satenik's legacy continued from Evanston to New Rochelle, New York, her original investment. So we're grateful to her. And we remember her great sacrifice at that time. And in New Rochelle, we continued to operate for about 20 years. It was a one lovely mansion, but everything was in that mansion. The classroom, the bedrooms, the library, the chapel, everything was in there. And it was not so conducive to academic life. So it was decided eventually to sell that property. We sold it to a Torah Academy in Westchester, a Jewish organization. And with that money, that same money, now it's multiplied over the years, we were able to purchase the Armand property, which is where we are now. We have a property which has now 5 buildings. One of the buildings is a dormitory for the single male students. It has a fully equipped gymnasium with widescreen TV, surround music, and everything that one needs to exercise. It has a kitchen, it has a reflection room, it has bedrooms, bathrooms, of course, common room, and that's where the male students live, and in the summer, that's where all the students live. Next to, we have a recreation building with theater-style recliners for TV and movies that they watch, and also a pool table, ping pong, Island. There is a soccer field, there is a basketball court, and in the summer we set up volleyball. We also have a building which I reside in, the Dean's Residence. We have a building which has studio apartments in it. I don't know, do you have studio apartments? That's a New York thing, I think. I don't know if you have them here. Everything's in one room, you know. So that's for visiting faculty, instructors, and so on. We've had students come from Echmiadzin, Apera actually, from Istanbul, and from Jerusalem, who have resided there for months, a year and a half in one case. We also have another building that contains apartments for married students. They're decent-sized apartments, separate living room, kitchen, bathroom, of course, and bedroom, and that's for married students. Usually without children they come, and they can probably fit in a newborn, but beyond that, you can't bring a bunch of kids. And that's why today we also have remote learning for what we have. We have a Kahanait's Tasaran, similar to what we have in Echmiadzin. where married, mature men already in some vocation, some profession, choose the priesthood. So we're doing that with them remotely primarily, but they come once a month and stay for a few days. And then we have we have the kitchen and dining room, of course. And then the main building contains a library, a two-level library. It contains a chapel, and which Sirpazan helped to consecrate with Hampar and Hajat Sirpazan in 2016. The major donors for that building were the Diocese family of London, close friends of Kari King I, of blessed memory, in whose name they gifted that building. There are also offices and classrooms, the lobby area, also patios, and altogether we have a nice campus. We have 3 gardens, a prayer garden with a khachkar with running water like you find in Hayastan. We have a founder's garden where we remember Evanston, New Rochelle, and Armagh, and Tiran Sirpazan is the centerpiece because he was the mind and the spirit and the wisdom behind this. And then we have a call to worship garden, Goch Bashtamunki garden. We have have you been to Jerusalem? If you've been, maybe you know about the Gochnag in Jerusalem. The Islamists would not allow us to ring bells. It was blasphemous for them. And so to call people to Jamir Kutun, there's a plank, and they hit the plank in a rhythmic fashion. So we have one of those too, because one of our neighbors didn't want to hear a bell. So I said, okay, we'll put up a Gochnag. Well, I got news for you. The Gochnag makes more noise than the bell does. But he got what he wanted, and he moved anyway. So. But every morning, and on our website, you can hear it. We have a student from here, actually, Karo Boyajan. He's become the expert Gochnag hearer for the seminary. So 10 minutes before Jamir Kutun, which we have twice a day, by the way, and during Bach we have it more often, he goes out and he hits the Gochnag in a rhythmic manner, and at that point, those who are still asleep wake up, and in 10 minutes get dressed and run to the Jamir Kutun. We have an academic program. We have 2 types. We have the Kahanais Tasaran, which is more of an express program. They come with us, and so we just build on that. We see what they know, what they don't know, and we build on that. And then we have the standard program, which is the Master of Divinity program, which is post-college or post-Gemaran. We have an institution that we work with, St. Vladimir's, and our students take some of their general courses from there and the rest from us. And the courses that our faculty teach are accredited towards the Master of Divinity degree, which they receive from there. The program is for 3 years, post-college or post-seminary, which they recognize as college level. After which, as I mentioned, they go to Echmiad in Jerusalem, combination of those 2 in order to further their Armenian studies. We also have programs for lay people, preparation in Christian education, in youth ministry, and we just added a new one in music ministry. So people who are not interested or can't become priests, they can follow that program. We also have an abbreviated, this is a new program, abbreviated form of youth ministry, Christian education ministry, and music ministry for those who want to serve on the parish level. So on a part-time basis, within a year or 2, they can get a certificate in that area. So that's something new. We have also every semester offer a continuing education program for priests remotely by Zoom. Some priests from the Western Diocese have been participating. There's one in April on marriage counseling. It's a 1-day program. If they participate, they get certification in marriage counseling. So we offer those to our clergy. We also offer lectures, singular, as well as full courses to lay people on various topics. Starting this week, there's a course on the Psalms in the Armenian Church, for example. If you want to know about these, if you want to sign up for them, you go to our website, stnersess.edu, stnersess.edu, and everything is on there. The summer conferences, the deacons training programs, we have a youth choir program, as well as the continuing education for priests, as well as for lay people. And one last thing, we were thrilled. We applied for a grant from the Lilly Foundation, if you've heard of that perhaps. They grant gifts. The family who founded this company are religious, they're Catholics actually. They like to fund religious church priests. I got some funding for a program I took. So they had a grant available for advancing preaching for priests. It's a 5-year program, which they will fund completely. We applied, and the several recipients, of course. The highest recipient was $1.25 million. The smallest recipient was $276,000. Hold on to your chairs. St. Nersess received $1.24 million, which is, I have to say, quite an accomplishment. We are, as I said from the start, a modest, small institution, but we beat out many large universities and seminaries and theological schools by the proposal that we offered. And so starting in the fall, we're going to be having 1-day, 2-day events. We're going to have things online as well. We're going to study the sermons of our church fathers from the early centuries, some of which you spoke about, and we're going to publish those sermons from back then. So this is all part of it. And we will have, with Sir Bazan's blessing, we'll do programs like that here. Already there's something planned for the East. And we hope that through this money, we're going to be able to help our priests to become better preachers. You know, we can all use that. And so we're thankful to God and to the Lilly Foundation for putting their trust in us. And if after 5 years, Chelok Menatzink, and did what we said we were going to do, then they will consider renewing it. So we're very strictly overseeing it. We have a board, and this is my final word, we have a board of directors that self-elects. It's not elected by an assembly, but the board elects and re-elects. Recently from this diocese, we have a fabulous new member. You may know her, Margaret Magurblian from the Pasadena parish. She's one of the best additions to our board of directors. Everyone just loves having her. So I'm meeting with her actually at 3 o'clock with their Sarkis to talk about, with Sir Bazan's blessing, a fundraiser we're hoping to do here in the fall for St. Nersess. I think that I'm going to stop here, and with whatever time I have, if there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. Ayo.
Yeah, my question, God is unchanging, which is great, and that ties to the core curriculum, but there are many contemporary issues, not necessarily Armenian issues specifically, right? Gun violence, Black Lives Matter, any number of topics that we should all have awareness of.
Yes.
How is that addressed in any of the
It is. It's addressed mostly in the pastoral care courses, where, you know, your parishioners are who they are. And so it's addressed there. Also, our students are required to do a summer of hospital chaplaincy work. That's a requirement. In fact, last year, Deacon Gaden, this coming year, I don't know if you know these people, Zade and Arin will be doing, they spend 2.5 months in intensive hospital chaplaincy work where they learn listening skills, they learn how to speak to people, hear people in a non-discriminatory way. So we do address it. It's not the main course that's taught, but it's spoken about, yes. Urish, yes, Ramitzik.
What about women in the Armenian church?
Right.
Do Armenian women have a calling at all, or is it exclusively for men?
Okay, I got news for you. If it wasn't for Armenian church, Armenian women, our church probably wouldn't exist today. Okay, so if it wasn't for Armenian women, our church maybe wouldn't exist today.
What about currently? We're not talking
I'm talking about currently too. But in terms of you're looking for a position or office, we do not have female priesthood. Okay, we have had female deacons, and there's always that consideration of renewing that possibility. The female deacon had a little different kind of a lifestyle than we would think that they could have today, where you have men who during the week are butchers, bakers, lawyers, teachers, and then on Sunday serve. They were in convents primarily. So, but we have a history, and we have trained many of them, of women who are taking leadership roles. You saw one on TV, right? On the program, Nancy Basmanjan. Critical in Christian education, in youth ministry. So that's what we have today. Okay?
Women don't have the same strong calling as the men do, is that correct?
Well, I don't call it strong, it's different.
Different.
It has nothing to do with strength. I know women who have stronger faiths than men. Many, I mean, of course, that's an exceptional thing, but there are many men who have weaker faith than women, so it has nothing to do with the strength of the call. It's the type of call, right? Look at Mary and the call she got. Without her, we wouldn't be saved.
Serving the church.
Yeah.
Like in the top.
Well, she served the Lord in a way that no one else could ever serve. She became the vessel of the Son of God who has saved us and offers us salvation. A woman. The first women, the first people to experience the resurrection were women, not men. They didn't even show up. Right? That may not answer your question, but maybe a little bit. Urish, anything else? Well, thank you for your attention. Now, let me tell you, I'm here kind of by coincidence, by the way. I come to the Western Diocese 2-3 times a year. I was here a month and a half ago for the ACYO convention, and then Badarak in Pasadena, and then in the summer I was here for High Camp, as well as the Deacons Training Program that Gomidas directs. Next weekend, on Saturday, we are doing a Lenten retreat all day here for altar servers. And so that's what I was coming for. And then Dervasken said, well, you're going to be here, why don't you come to Reclaim? And I'm really proud to know Dervasken. We were in Etchmanting together during my second year, and I consider him an old friend from decades and decades. Thank you, all of you.